Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Say What podcast. My name is Hannah, and on this podcast, we talk about purity culture, marriage, sex, relationships, girly things. It's a really fun time here at the podcast. And today, I have a special guest that I'm so excited to be recording with. I have Kristen Miele from Sex Ed Reclaimed. Kristen, I'm so excited that you're here on the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Hannah. I've been following you for a while and I was really excited to connect. And I just felt like our visions overlap in so many
Hmm.
ways. And I always
Yes,
think about how it takes a village to raise kids or even just to be in healthy fellowship with one another. And so I love
absolutely.
that's my favorite part of social media is just connecting to other people, like-minded
Hmm.
people and people who are different, but in order to have
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm so glad. I love your account so much. I love the work that you do, sex ed in a Christian standpoint, but in a really positive way that's not shaming. Like we grew up in purity culture that just like really encourages conversations. The work that you are doing is so important. I remember when I started posting on Instagram and started my podcast, I really did not have a lot of people that I felt like believed the same way I did, or at least I couldn't find them yet. And over the years, I'm finding more and more people who are we are like aligned in our views. And I mean, everybody has like some differences, but you know what I mean. The overarching, I always felt like I was like in the middle. I'm not all the way
Yes.
on one side with purity culture. I'm not all the way on the other. I still try to view it through a Christian lens. And so it's just like so good to find people that you have the same like values and align with, and your work is similar. It helps the space not feel so lonely because talking about sex on the internet or even just talking about sex as your job can be a little bit lonely because it's a little bit bizarre. But it's good to have people who are doing it with you.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I just got banned from TikTok. So I get you on
I
that. And I
saw.
just
I
cannot get back
I was
on.
so upset. I did not know that you were on. I had not seen you on TikTok. You had not come across my TikTok yet, and so I was so sad when I saw that you were banned. That is like soul crushing when this is your job too.
Right.
It's like
It is
that took
hard.
from
And
you.
I mean, I didn't feel too sad. I get more just angry, right? Because we all know
Hmm.
what kids are seeing on social media and what they can
Oh
come
yeah,
across and what you can consume and all the messaging you can see. And I am not participating in anything negative or bad for kids. In fact, I'm doing the
right.
opposite. And so that I would get banned is just really telling about the world we're living in right now. TikTok wasn't my main
Absolutely.
thing. Instagram is definitely my main thing. But, I had a video go viral on there. I had millions of views and
Hmm.
people were really appreciative. And so it just sucks that out of nowhere, like
Yeah.
it's gone. It's all
Yeah.
removed. Yeah.
I know. I know.
It
It's
is
so
lonely.
scary. It's like when this is your job, it's just like it can be taken, especially knowing what else is on the internet freely for people to consume all the time. And you're like, I'm trying to go against that and teach something better than this. But it is just so disheartening when that stuff is totally fine to be. I mean, if anytime I look at a TikTok comment section, the first comment is always some kind of like porn site thing that like wants you to
Mm,
click on their link and then something. So I'm like, every single comment is like that's like, why can't our stuff that's positive and good be out there? It's
right.
so frustrating.
It is frustrating. It's definitely a battle beneath the battle, right? We're not just getting
Yes.
banned on TikTok. There is way more to the story than that. And I'm fully sure of that being in this potentially lonely space of being a sex ed teacher and a Christian. Like
Hmm.
I get some stuff from both sides who are uncomfortable with
Yeah.
one or the other of those things. And it is a spiritual battle as well, which is what
Oh,
all
for
parents are
sure.
in too. So I relate and
Oh,
connect to that.
absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us about your sex ed reclaimed and like how you got started, like what you do with sex ed reclaimed. Give us some background on that.
Absolutely. I studied public health and I was assigned in graduate school to teach human sexuality. And it was really terrifying for me. I never grew up
I'm
talking
sure.
about sex. I didn't even like public speaking. I didn't even actually want to be a teacher when I was a kid. And so this
Mhm.
assignment felt really scary, but it ended up being this beautiful event in my life, which the Lord already knew my future. And I love thinking
Mhm.
about the path He knows I'm going down. And He knew that from the moment I got that assignment. I started to
Yeah.
see that even educated kids were really uneducated in this topic. I started to see more of the biblical basis for understanding sex and sexuality and how important it was for us as human beings, not just for
Mhm.
walking through life, but walking through our walk with the Lord, like in our faith
Yeah.
life, how important it is to have a healthy and holy view of sexuality. I reflected a lot on purity culture, on my lack of sex ed, and how it influenced me and how it even impacted my future marriage and relationship.
Hmm.
And then I went on the mission field because that's what I was going to do. And so I taught sex ed for a while, but ultimately went overseas, lived there, thought that was the rest of my life. And
Where did you
actually,
go?
we lived in Honduras for 3 years,
Wow.
or almost
Okay,
3 years. Yeah.
amazing.
So
Wow.
we loved it. We had great jobs. I did actually end up doing sex ed over there, but we left really unplanned. We came back for a training to Kentucky where our agency was, and my husband felt a clear call never to return. And it ended up
Wow.
being that the fields we were on, the area, really fell apart after that. There were some leadership
Mm,
struggles and honestly just some toxic sin issues that were not getting
mm,
resolved in a lot of the really great people, and
man.
not everybody, but most. And so the Lord spared us from that, but he also revealed a lot of sexual brokenness, both that were on the
Yeah.
field, in our own lives, etc. And of all things, I was just like, really, this? Like, I've been doing this work for years, and this is happening on the mission field. This is happening with missionaries, Christians, right?
Right.
This is happening in my own life. What is going on? And so, in that brokenness, I was actually praying to the Lord, like, what am I meant to do now? What's my work going to be? We're back in the States. We never even got our things. Like, I'm just sad and mad. And I never had the vision my husband had. And it was like
Yeah.
almost clear as looking at the sun or something. It was just, you're going to start sex ed reclaimed. And
Wow.
I just kind of thought, yeah, I am. And I had no idea what that was. I had no idea. I started filming on my iPhone 3 videos that I was going to put on the internet. And then I
Oh,
talked to a
yes.
friend about it who's a videographer, and he was like, yeah, no, you can't do that.
Right.
We looked at it. I mean, they were terrible quality, as you can imagine. And
So
then a
grainy, I'm
vision really
sure.
started to form of like a full digital library for Christian families to access. I started to
Hmm.
make it secular so that I could be in both worlds very
Hmm.
easily. But then I just knew God gave me this vision. He even named it. Like I didn't create this. I wouldn't have thought of this. I wouldn't have gone this route. I didn't even want to be a sex ed teacher back, now 15 years ago. But I
Hmm.
am very much in this position because the Lord has brought me back to it again and again. And I've loved
Right.
it. It is no
Yeah.
question where I'm supposed to be. No question about that. And so
That's amazing.
now those little 3 measly videos have become over 130 videos for Christian families to watch with their kids, to utilize for all of childhood, 3 to 18. And I just love the resource. I'm so excited about it. It is authentic and honest and engaging and fun, and
Hmm.
it gets at this huge gap that all Christian parents face, which is, how am I going to do this? What am I
Right.
actually going to say? And there are Christians who are encouraging other Christians to do it. They just don't know how to actually do the talks. But I
Right.
created the talks like for them to use
Hmm.
as this great jumping off point to have regular conversation in your family.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's so evident, like when you are walking in your calling, like the Lord is going to show the fruit from that, and He's going to give you the ideas. He's going to give you the name. He's going to give you the content. Like it just flows so naturally when it comes from the Lord. And so that's so amazing. And I know that the work that you're doing really is impacting lives, even if it wasn't where you thought it was going to be. Doing your life in Honduras and doing what you're doing over there. Coming back here isn't what you expected, but it seems like you are doing what the Lord has called you to do. So it's amazing,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
it's changing lives.
Yeah, and I think even just like recently what you've shared on your social media, there's like this deep grief that comes from losing something, especially something that
Hmm.
you feel the Lord gave you and was good. And then it's
Right.
almost like he took it away. That's what it feels like. Like he took it away,
Yeah.
or certainly he allowed it to go away.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that is heartbreaking. But yet,
Hmm.
from my deepest grief and my like wailing out to the Lord, and I hope this encourages somebody, there really was something anew born. And that
Hmm.
just absolutely blows my mind that God already knew
Yeah.
in my deep grief what he was creating in me and what was going to be born in me and how he was going to use it to impact families. Like, I was
Yeah.
just a sad, like fragile, pissed off person in this actually
Right.
hotel room when this vision was born. And
Mm.
God already saw and he already sees what's going to happen with it. And man, I am so thankful. So thankful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that's a story of hope, out of the darkest despair, the Lord brings something good, that is scriptural. And it is really hard to wrap your mind around because you're like, well, I don't want to be in that sad dark place. Like I'm this is how I feel, but I don't want to be here. And it may not give you all of the answers as to why you walked through this, but there is something that good is coming out of it, and that is just like the story of Jesus. So that is so amazing, and the work that you're doing really is impacting. And I saw on your website too that you do courses for like homeschool people as well, which I think is super, like homeschool communities, not just homeschool people, homeschool communities is what I meant to say, which I think is so important too, just really equipping them with that work as well. That's just really amazing.
Yeah, I wasn't homeschooled myself, but it's a definite gap. They're missed a lot in
Hmm.
education and in Christian curriculum resources. Like they can find their
Right.
own thing, but sex ed is not something that most homeschool families have good access to, or had good
Hmm.
access to when they themselves were homeschooled or in a Christian schooling situation. So I provide really for anybody who's ready to start talking about this and doesn't know how to.
Yeah. And how early do your courses, like age wise, start?
They start at 3. So,
3.
as you know,
Yes.
you're a mom, and as your listeners
Hmm.
know, kids start asking questions as almost as quickly as they can talk. They really want to know
Right.
things, but our awkwardness and our discomfort also has already been in us for years. So when they're asking,
Hmm.
"What is this?" or they're touching like their own penis when you're doing a diaper change, or they're in the bath
Right.
and they're asking you questions about their body, and you find yourself using slang or feeling uncomfortable or like how
Hmm.
am I supposed to respond? Or what's even the godly response to this? Can I tell them this? Should I use the real words? Um,
Right.
how do I start having conversation? Like that's kind of showing your purity culture or
Mhm.
your lack of sex ed. That is showing it
Right.
right there. There's
Yeah.
something about your past, about our past, that made us uncomfortable when it came to this topic. And the short answer to that of what made me uncomfortable is that we didn't have good sex ed. Even if our parents like
Hmm.
loved us and did their best, of course, right? And the
Right.
church did too. Even if we came up in the best of churches, 98% of us, and I'm just making that statistic up, but a lot of us didn't
Yeah.
have healthy and holy sex ed. So then when our
Right.
kids are asking us questions, we're like, oh, wait, shoot, I don't actually know how to do
I don't
this.
know.
Right.
I
And
know.
so my curriculum starts really young, but obviously I'm not explaining these big things to kids. I'm just getting at
Hmm.
safety and I'm getting at body parts and names and
Right.
how God designed you. I just actually because I actually just added more videos to my curriculum, and my video editor made these really cute graphics to go along with my boundary video. So I introduced the concept
Hmm.
of boundaries and why we have boundaries and how they actually keep us
Hmm.
safe, right? And of course, we know as adults this is getting at bigger issues around sexual health and
Hmm.
around consent, responsibility. Why does God create boundaries in our life? Right? Like we even struggle with that as adults, but it starts really young that you learn, no, God is good and is
Hmm.
trustworthy and he wants to keep me from pain and harm. He's not trying to keep something good
Yeah.
from me. And so it's really basic concepts in my 3 to 6 year old curriculum, but it gets at the
Hmm.
bigger picture of this topic.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure it like breaks it down to where you can eat, explain it to them in a way that they can understand, on their
Yes.
level, which is really important,
Yeah.
for them. I know growing up, I didn't even know the proper terms of my own body. I did not learn what a vulva was. I just thought it was
Right.
all a vagina until I was in college. I think I might have learned that in like one of my human sexuality classes, actually. I had a really weird human sexuality class in college. It was like very, very bizarre, like very uncomfortable, very just like weird. Like I did not feel like it was educational. It was like weird. Like we had to write in anonymous answers to like the weirdest places that we've had sex, what our fantasies were. We
Oh
were
no.
asked if you had to name your genitalia, what would you name it?
Oh wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was gross. And
That
I
was
was
my
like, this
class.
is not what this is supposed to be like. Like, this is
That's
not
no.
educational.
That's what I
This is
taught.
so
I
weird.
taught human sexuality at my
Yeah.
university, and that was really my introduction to sex ed was me
Yeah.
teaching it. But I did not do any of the awkward stuff, but it was really dependent
Yeah.
on the teacher. And that's a thing. Sex
Yes.
ed
Oh,
does
and my
become,
teacher was like a 65-year-old man.
oh, even
Like,
better. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it was really weird. And thankfully that class was online, but I did have him in person for another class to teach. And so I don't know. I mean, he said all of our answers are anonymous, but I don't know what they can see on their end if they're not. And it was just It was the most bizarre thing that I had ever studied in my life. And I was like, this is not how this is supposed to be. I'm supposed to be educated and not like uncomfortable talking about my past sexual experiences. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
this is not what it's supposed to be like.
No. And we all have those examples of what it's not supposed to be like. And that's
Right.
why the name even is good, like reclaiming it.
Hmm.
It's actually something
Absolutely.
beautiful and enjoyable and
Hmm.
exciting to talk
Right.
about because there's a lot of opportunity in it. So,
Totally,
yeah.
totally. Well, I want to jump into talking. We're going to talk about, lots of sex education today, but I wanted to focus some of our time talking about talking to your kids about porn. And there is so much, I feel like every time I see a new statistic, the age that the kids are first discovering it keeps getting younger and younger and younger, which is just like heartbreaking. And I think a lot of parents of, our generations is like they never once I think have ever said the word porn out loud or said it to me or said it to any of my brothers. And I love my parents are the best. Like this is not a negative on them. They don't think they were provided with the resources that, like you have and that we have today. They just didn't know. And so this was not something we talked about. They talked about it at church, but it was only talked about to the boys, and there was like general conversation about it when people were speaking, but it was 99% like, okay, boys, and when you're watching porn, which we know so many more than just boys watch porn, girls watch it as well, and so it's very isolating for girls, especially when they are stuck in that because it's a quote unquote boys issue. And so I just wanted to talk about that today. I want to like provide parents with the help of how to have these big conversations because there's so much more to sex ed than just porn, but I know that this is on a lot of our minds. And I actually was looking at some of the statistics from your website about porn and kids. And so I wanted to read some of those because they were fascinating to me. Children are highly likely to encounter explicit pornographic material by age 10 and 99% likely by age 18. 10 is so young. But I feel like I'm even seeing it younger too. Like that's just like probably an average. I would assume that even younger kids than 10 are seeing it.
Absolutely. I mean, we could absolutely film an entire podcast just on questions I've been asked by young children because most of my sex ed experience has
Right.
actually been in non-religious settings. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's no, there really isn't any discomfort necessarily in asking me things, even in like very public
Mm-hmm.
schools. And so you might even be heartbroken on questions I've heard from little kids.
Oh,
I'm
I'm sure.
actually working on a book right now, which is coming out next year. But one of the
So
things I'm doing
exciting.
between the chapters is writing stories because something I
Mm.
don't know that Christians are as familiar with is what I'm actually asked. And these I'm
Yeah.
asked by children, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just very surprising and eye-opening in a good way because it helps us to understand what they're facing. But I one of
Right.
the stories, just to give you a little preview,
Mm-hmm.
that I will never forget is this boy in I was in like this really small classroom, it was really crowded with a bunch of kids. They had separated the sexes, like you highlighted briefly,
Mm-hmm.
boys and girls. And this boy, they were 10 and 11, and I was doing a basically like a preparing for puberty talk. Okay, but
Mm-hmm.
kids, whatever you're talking about, they feel that they can ask you anything after that. And this boy raised
Yeah.
his hand right away, right as early as he could. And he said, "Is it normal the first time you have sex?" Which isn't really what I was talking about. But he said, "Is it normal the first time that you have sex to have sex with several girls at once?" And he was 10 years old. And I can still
Oh my
remember his
gosh.
face because sex ed teachers typically, if they're good, should have a good poker face where we are just
Right. Right.
empathetic and we're hearing it. But internally, I was like, breaking
Oh,
apart.
right.
I was
Dying. Yeah.
crying for this kid because
Yeah.
I'm positive he was exposed to porn and was seeing porn with some maybe regular basis to where he saw this happening, right? Which is common in porn.
Right.
Or
Right.
maybe he saw something in real life, like in his home. I don't know.
Right.
And I just had to like take a
Man.
beat, which by the way is also a good tip for parents. Sometimes you just need a moment and they're not really
Right.
noticing that moment. They're waiting for your answer, but you just kind of have to breathe for a second of like, man, I did
Totally.
not expect that question. And so I kept
Right.
my poker face fine and we talked, I answered the question, but that is one kid I can just still remember
Yeah.
because it
I'm
shocked
sure.
me at what I knew he was already being exposed to. And I
Right. A 10
highly,
year old is
yes,
seeing like multiple. like having sex with multiple women, then that's what he's thinking about. It's like, oh, am I supposed to go get like multiple girlfriends? Because that's what I see here. So I guess that's normal. Like I'm supposed to have
Right.
multiple people doing
Right.
this with, right?
Like, yeah. And he was like a young
That was a
fourth
genuine
grader.
question from his mind. Like
Right.
that's where what he was
Yeah,
processing.
that's his
So
sex ed. That is his sex ed.
yeah.
That those are his first experiences of what sex is and supposed to be and what it's going to
Hmm.
be like. And his friends, I mean, are going to pick up on that too. So it really
Right.
is heartbreaking to know the stats because you know that there's people
Yeah.
behind them, but what
Hmm.
we can't control the world. We cannot control culture, we cannot control what is going on every
Hmm.
day in the news and in people's lives, but we can control what we talk about with our kids. And if
Absolutely.
you don't talk about it, somebody else for sure
Totally.
will.
And I know I think a lot of parents are naive in the fact of like, oh, well, my kid's not going to do that, or they're not going to watch that, or they're not going to be told that. And I think they're coming from that in a good heart, of like, oh yeah, no, my little baby would never, but we have to be in front of it. We have to be on top
Yes.
of it because you have no idea what they're getting exposed to. I mean, we can only control so much of their environment, especially, which is a big reason I wanted to talk about this today, is because kids are getting cell phones so young, which I am very against. My children will not have cell phones until they are a lot older than what they're getting them today. They don't need them, but and tablets too. So they're on tablets. I mean,
Yes.
what you can find on YouTube is enough. Like
Yep.
they can find so much on YouTube, and so for them to have all the access, even with the parental controls, like we were watching a Thomas video the other day in a YouTube Kids, and then a scary Thomas video came up. Like someone had made like a demonic Thomas the Train video, and it's on kids YouTube. So it's like, thank God it wasn't anything pornographic, but it was
Right.
still scary. So like what they're shown, we can't control all that, and so that's why we really have to have these conversations. It's so important.
Yes, we
So
absolutely
important.
do. Yeah.
Okay, another stat is 75% of parents think that their child has never seen porn. In reality, over 50% of children report watching it. And I bet that's even higher, honestly, like cuz I'm sure kids aren't wanting to report it.
Right. And the stats that you saw on my website, I mean, these are linked if you want to see the studies that they're from. But that
Mm-hmm.
study I found really interesting. I will say I believe it was done in the UK, but all of these parents, right? And it's I don't know if you noticed this, but it's different for guys or girls. So more
Mm-hmm.
parents of boys thought their kids had seen porn than the parents of girls
Mm-hmm.
who thought surely they had not. And
Right.
yet the discrepancy is huge. So the
Oh,
vast
I'm sure.
majority of parents like, no, my kid hasn't seen it yet. They would have brought it up. I would have noticed. They would have said something. And
Mm-hmm.
yet their kids, their own kids, are actually already actively watching it. It's not just that they've seen
Right.
it, they're watching it with some sort of
Right.
habitual pattern. And even more so, more parents say, oh, no, my girls aren't watching it. They've never seen it. And that is not the case. And so
Right.
the discrepancy between what parents think about their kids and what they've actually seen is huge. And
Yeah.
that's why sometimes it really does help to have a sex ed teacher or a kind of another person come in the picture because it's
Mm-hmm.
like this neutral space where they feel they
Yes.
can admit, they can ask, they can wonder, or this other person is actually confirming a lot of the things that their parent teaches. So it's this helpful confirmation of
Yes.
information that they thought just their mom or dad, said or
You know,
taught.
you get your parents can tell you something over and
Yeah.
over and over, and you hear the exact sentence from a third party person, and you're like, oh, that's it. I believe that. So I
Yeah.
think that I'm totally with you. I'm
Right.
I'm even like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even myself, I could see myself with all the like experience I have in being a sex ed teacher, still, of course, hoping and hanging on to the idea that no, my daughter won't see it. But if I am
Hmm.
being honest, which I am being honest, my own children will see porn. It is very rare, especially in 2025, that a child today would grow up and by the time they're in college never have seen anything. Even in our generation, like I'm a millennial,
Hmm.
they've tried to do studies on people who have been exposed to porn in our generation versus not. They can't even do them because there's not a big enough control population to say, oh,
Hmm.
this group hasn't seen it. So now we can really study how it's impacted them since they haven't versus the people who
Right.
have. They don't even have the ability to do that because our generation, by and large, have all seen porn. I
Right.
just looked today on like the biggest show on Netflix right now, and I
Hmm.
can't even remember what it's called. It's something new. It's about
The
families in
Hunting
Texas.
Wives?
Yes.
The Hunting Wives,
Wives.
yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Immediately in the first episode of that, there
Oh,
is nudity
yep.
and there is
Yep. I
clear,
tried to watch it because I was like, oh, what is this? And I was like,
right,
oh, no,
right.
no, 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 no.
Exactly. And you can kind of tell by the
Yeah.
cast, like the cast tends to these some of these casts tend to pick movies like this, but
Hmm.
immediately there's like sexual references. There's kind of jokes about a woman having sex with one of the kids, her friend's kid.
Yeah.
There's cheating, infidelity, like it's just horrible. And yet you imagine a
Right.
14-year-old going on Netflix when their parents gone or downstairs, logging in and being
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I love that actress. I'm gonna watch it. It's popular." And then
Right.
they see all the things that that show has.
Right.
So
Within
it
the
is.
first, I think it's like the first 10 minutes. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
there, like
you're right.
they're naked.
And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, Bridgerton, like Bridgerton's hugely popular. Game of
Right.
Thrones, which I have never watched that show. I'm not going to
Yeah, I
watch it,
haven't
but it
either.
sounds horrendous. Like
Yeah.
everything is just pornographic because that is
Right.
what gets eyes and that's what's acceptable. That's what sells.
Hmm.
That's what culture wants to see at the end of the day. And
Right.
so
And so so parents are thinking like, oh, they've never seen it. I'm like, but have they watched the show? I mean,
everywhere.
that's what it is. You know, it may not be logging on to pornhub.com, but it
Right.
is still there. And the videos that you can find on, I
Well,
know
and I,
X is a really big platform for that. You know,
yes,
you can
I even
see it.
like think about transportation. Like, have your kids flown on a plane with screens?
Mm,
Because people pick movies that have that, or they're on their phones looking at. I remember one time sitting behind a kid. I mean, he looked like a kid to me. He was probably like 20, but he
mhm,
had his phone and he was on Snapchat and he was looking at like girls' Snapchats. And
mhm.
this one girl had posted in her Snapchat. I have no idea who this girl was. I wasn't even, but I
Right.
was like basically saw nearly her entire top half because she posted that in Snapchat. And he, of course, showed
Wow.
all of his friends once he came
Of
across it.
course.
And I just happened to be
Yeah.
looking. And so even just on a
Snapchat is
plane,
so not good. Like I
that's what it
no.
was created for,
No.
basically. So
Right.
it's really sad, but
Right.
Snapchat is hugely popular. And let alone
Very.
just like trying to fly to your ski trip or your family's house for a
Yeah.
week during spring break and somebody's watching a
Right.
movie with a ton of stuff in it. And
Yeah.
now
I
what?
mean, you can be exposed
Yeah,
everywhere.
here. And
Um,
imagine that
Go
kid
ahead.
being exposed, but already having had a conversation with you versus not.
Right. Right.
And now
Right.
you have
And
to in
something I love that
crisis.
you said with these stats too was that kids believe porn is realistic, affecting their future sexual behaviors. And I mean, just like the 10-year-old asking the question about the multiple, like when you have sex for the first time, are there going to be multiple women there? You know, like he believed that that is what is supposed to happen. Like that is why he asked the question. You know, it wasn't just trying to be fun. I mean, he genuinely was like, is that going to happen? Is there going to be multiple people? Because that's what they believe is realistic, you know? And I know a lot of girls, like, especially growing up, you know, women, because it has been seen forever as a man's issue, which we know it's not just a man's issue. But I know a lot of girls would carry a lot of shame, being like, I will never be able to perform like that. Like I'm never going to be able to act like that in the bedroom, and so they carry a lot of that. Even though we know it's not realistic, it's still just like wired in our brains. Like I'm not going
Oh,
to be able to
totally.
do that, and so it harms marriages. You know?
It absolutely destroys marriages, and Satan
Yes,
loves it. And he
loves it.
uses it to destroy the mission field, I believe. Like with my
Absolutely,
past experience, he uses it to destroy
totally.
kids. He like he just loves the addiction of going back and
Hmm.
consuming as many women as you can, or as many men as you can, or as many fantasies as
Hmm.
you can, instead of actually channeling that sexual energy into your spouse and your spouse alone, because that's what glorifies God.
Right.
That's what's actually healthy. That's what's actually going to give you a good sex life. But there's all
Totally.
of these hidden addictions because you're getting married now to somebody who's been watching it for 15 years or whatever. And that's our kids
Right.
too. I mean, if we want our kids to have healthy future marriages, then we want to raise them to understand the harms of porn, how addictive it is, how bad it is for our health and those
Hmm.
people who are in it, how much it like blasphemes the name of God and his image bearers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how
Yeah.
it really will destroy like aspects of your life.
Right. I
That's the
love
truth.
the account Moral Revolution, I think
Yeah.
is what it's called.
Same.
I'm sure you're familiar with them because as much as we talk about it from a Christian standpoint. They're like religion out. This is like we're taking that out of the conversation. Like this is still really harmful. Like this is still like that's their whole thing is like we're not coming at it from a religious standpoint, which I'm sure some people who work for them are religious. But you know, they're just like we're taking that out of it and we're talking about it from just the basis of it being harmful, you know, so we can say as a whole that it is harmful. You know, there's they have so much proof and reasons why and stuff and I love that for them. You know, I'm going to talk about it from a Christian standpoint, but I love that that's also also out there as well. It's not just Christians saying that it's harmful, you know?
It's not. It's definitely not. It's secular
Yeah.
studies and groups and all the time.
Absolutely. So, what age would you say that we should start talking to our kids about this? That is like at a level that they'll understand, or like, what age should we really start doing that?
Right. So I would say as soon as they have devices or have access to devices,
Mm-hmm.
I have come across, sometimes I speak at conferences and I've come across families who literally live like out in the boonies, on a farm,
Mm-hmm.
like no access to
Mm-hmm.
anything. Okay, well then obviously that child is going to be less likely to be exposed. But what about, when they visit neighbors or friends or family members,
Mm-hmm.
or they do go on a plane, or shoot, they're just driving in the car with you and there's billboards that are really sexualized, or songs,
Mm-hmm.
movies. So I think it's really important as soon as they have access to basically media and devices. So my daughter did get a tablet, because we lived abroad. It was hard to
Mm-hmm.
travel with like a little one,
Sure,
with all those
totally. I
hours.
think there's definitely, reasons for things like that. Absolutely. And my child watches TV. So like, I'm just giving it to just like distract the child and forget about it. I'm like, okay. But for reasons, totally.
Absolutely. But it was really helpful. Another missionary recommended that and we were like, "Oh, okay, we hadn't even thought of that." And so I actually started talking to her when she was 3 or 4 about bad pictures. That's how I phrase it with kids under
Mm-hmm.
like 9, is bad pictures are pictures of people who don't have clothes on, um and which is that is disrespectful. That is not okay, for those people. There should never be pictures like that. Nobody should ever take a picture of you like that or show you a picture like that,
Mm-hmm.
because that doesn't love people well. It's not kind, right? So I keep it really, really basic for little kids, but I told her really little. And I highly recommend, um, using that kind of language with kids who
Mm-hmm.
are little, who do have access, because whether they have access at school or at home or with a friend or a daycare or a childcare worker, who comes over, your
Mm-hmm.
parents, maybe the grandparents play devices for them, even though you don't typically,
Right.
then they need to know about this. Because just like you mentioned earlier, like this creepy YouTube video came up that's so common.
Right.
Um, yeah. So talk to kids as soon as they have access to things like that, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise you're kind of behind. You're kind of behind. Like you want to be in front of the
Right.
issue. You don't want to be coming
Yes,
up
I
on a
think that's really
crisis.
what it comes down to, is being in front of the issue, because you want to do your best as you can as a parent to create an environment where your kid will talk to you about what they're seeing, but not all, even if you do your best, not all kids are comfortable to go to their mom and be like, "Hey, I saw this video. This was really weird. Like, what is this?" They may not do that. And so going and getting ahead of it and having those conversations first will open up that space for them to have those conversations with you that they may felt like they couldn't, or they were too embarrassed to. So I think that's like really what it not that's going to solve everything, but it's really important, like you said, to get ahead of it rather than like coming from behind.
Yeah. And then you're the first voice that they hear, which is really impactful,
Mm-hmm.
and sets the stage for how kids do approach you when it comes to questions
Mm-hmm.
related to such a sensitive topic. Because we all have experiences, like so many of us, where we did ask something or we did want to know, but it was really awkward, it was really bad, it was really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it just didn't go well. And so then we didn't approach that again. That's the normal thing for somebody to do. If
Right.
something's really hard or bad or awkward or uncomfortable, then we just aren't going to do it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to go somewhere else where it is comfortable, like Google,
Sure.
ChatGPT, porn, and we're going to go there. Social
Oh,
media, our friends.
yeah.
And that's not the main voice you want your kids to hear when it comes to this important,
Right.
life changing topic. You really want it to be
Totally.
yours. But in order to do that, you have to be ahead of it and you have to be pretty consistent. Like, I'm going to engage with
Mm-hmm.
this when it comes up every time. I'm not just going to ignore it. I'm not going to say, we'll talk about that later. We'll do that on a
Mm-hmm.
weekend in 5 years. No, no, no. We're going to talk about it as these questions come so I can show you I'm a safe
Right.
space for you and I love you and we can talk about this.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you mentioned having an ongoing conversation versus like one weekend away. I think one weekend away just puts so much pressure on it. It makes it more weird than what it
Yes.
needs to be. Like you're going on a weekend away, because that's a very common thing. That is a very common,
Yes.
like, you go just like purity trip thing, whatever. Like, you
Yes.
go for this purpose, and it just makes it so much more weird than it needs to be, and so
Yes.
much
Oh my
more
gosh.
uncomfortable.
Hannah, can I read you this email I literally just got this week? Not
Please,
the whole thing,
yes,
just like a paragraph.
please,
Okay, I have it pulled
yes,
up, so that's
please.
why. Okay, so this woman emailed me about the curriculum, and she said in this, unprompted, right? She's just emailing me. Both my husband and I were raised with one awkward birds and bees talk. We have two older children, 26 and 25 now, who we took on their weekend getaways with purity conversations and have seen so clearly over the last 5 years where that failed them. The Lord's grace has been poured out, but we want to do things differently. Finding your curriculum is truly an answer to prayer. Anyway, she emailed me this. I don't know who she is, but that is so common. I'm going to make it a weekend. I'm going to almost
Yes.
build it up like it's this big thing, which, like you said, makes it more awkward and weird rather
Right.
than have a continual conversation. And I have gotten that type of email at least like 3 or 4 times where somebody
Oh,
has
I'm
older
sure.
kids and then they had a kid later on. And they're like, we
Mhm.
have to change it. I've seen how it failed. It does not work. I really messed up.
Right.
Purity weekends didn't do what I thought they would do. Like, I'm over it. And that's because a weekend cannot fix this issue. It cannot solve
No,
it or
and
talk
it's
about it.
like a big scare tactic too for the weekend
Yes.
of like puts fear into them rather than like, as a family, you have values for your family, what you believe in and what you want your family to be. And this needs to be one of those like values that are teaching just as they grow up. So that way it becomes like, their own beliefs as well. Because if you take them for one weekend, they may have an idea about this already. They're not going to change their mind in just like one weekend. And if they do, it might be out of fear, not out of actual like their belief of this as well, you
Yeah.
know?
And then they're coming in with
Yeah.
all their life experiences already, and then they're about to have a ton more life experiences, but that doesn't set up the
Mhm.
conversation to have and enjoy because it just makes it
Right.
into this one weekend talk.
I'm so excited to tell you that today's podcast is sponsored by Pixie Cup. You guys know that I'm obsessed with Pixie Cup. I've been using Pixie Cup for 5 years now, and I absolutely love it. If you've been around for any amount of time, you know that I'm absolutely obsessed with Pixie. When I made the switch to a cup, my cramps instantly improved so much. I saved a ton of money. I got more comfortable with my body, and I loved knowing that I was giving back because Pixie gives a cup to women in need with every purchase. I love to see it. And I recently got their pads, and I'm really excited to try those too. They have so many different products for you to choose from, such as cups, discs, pads, applicators, steamers, cleaners, and more. They seriously have it all. I've used the same cup for years now, and it still works just as good as I got it the first time. I had to switch to a new cup after I had a baby, and that's the only reason I got a new one was because I had a baby and so I needed to go up a size, but seriously the quality is just as good as when I used it the first time. There's no leaking at all and it is super comfortable. I could talk about Pixie forever, but the last thing I'll leave you with is that their customer support team is seriously 10 out of 10. I am obsessed with their team. They are so helpful. I know some girls have messaged them before being like, hey, I'm having some trouble getting this in the right way. Do you have any tips? And they have walked them through how to insert the cup or how to insert the disc, just different troubleshooting tactics you can use. They seriously are so, so helpful. I love the Pixie team so much. And I know that using a new period care item can be scary, but their team can help you so much. They have so many videos and tutorials. It's really great. And you can learn more about Pixie's period care today by clicking the link in the episode notes, and you can get 15% off with code SAYWHAT. Thank you, Pixie, for sponsoring today's episode. So with that, with what we're saying of like having these ongoing conversations, what would you say are some like best practices when we are talking about this with our kids? Because I mean, obviously getting ahead of it is one that we are definitely trying to do, but I think parents feel so overwhelmed, don't even know what to do. So they should buy your courses. Those are definitely, a best practice, but what are just some overarching themes that parents should be thinking about as they are trying to, have these conversations about sex in general, but, with porn specifically?
Yeah, I think I have 3 tips when it comes to overarching best practices
Mm,
in regards to this conversation. One is to pray about it, to actually take
mm-hmm.
time to reflect, like maybe it's journaling and seriously getting away if you're able, or just taking a night, or even a date night, like with your spouse who's going to do this with you. Have reflective time where you really consider your own sex ed experiences, you consider your own baggage, maybe the thoughts and the experiences you had growing up and how those still impact you today, and you either reflect on that sex ed or lack of sex ed experience, you talk about it with your spouse, you pray about it, or ideally you really do all of those, because you
Mm-hmm.
have to go through your own stuff first to really do this well and with consistency
Yeah.
and not feel like bitter and awkward about it.
That's
Um,
such a good word. Yes, you're so right. Yeah, that's so good.
So yeah, that's the first step. It's very humbling because we all have our stuff. And even I have been married for
Hmm.
13 years. I mean, I am still learning things about my husband, even as it relates to this
Mm.
topic and his experience growing or experiences rather, growing up.
Mhm.
We had very similar families, but very different experiences when it came to our understanding of sex and sexuality, right? And
Mhm.
everybody does. So even if you feel like, no, I've talked about that with my husband, I know what his experience was like, do it again because there's probably more.
Right.
Or like, what haven't you told me? Or what do you feel like was more formative than you think? Or what are you struggling with right
Right.
now? I mean, there's plenty of spouses who don't even know if their spouse is watching porn now, because that's
Mhm.
something we as Christians hide and we don't want to talk about, and we know it's like bad. So
Mhm.
have those conversations to talk about where you're at right now and where you're coming from.
Definitely. And it's good for you guys need to be on the same page too. So
Yes.
going into this and like you need to be on the same page about what because your children are probably going to have questions and so
Yes.
you need to be on the same page of like what are you going to share, what are you going to say, if you decide that you don't want to share something, are you going to say, I'm not going to share that. Like you guys need to be on the same page too with what you're going to share and your past experiences as well, so that you're so right with that. Like that's a great starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like how you said at the very beginning, this is a lonely space potentially. And I have parents come to
Mm-hmm.
me sometimes and say, my husband is absolutely not going to talk about this, or my wife is absolutely not going to talk about this, but I want to. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I do feel for them because it is, I mean, parenting is a team thing. And this is a team thing
Absolutely.
too. You do want to be on the same page. And so, really figuring out, like, if that's your case, why this other person doesn't, like, what is holding them back? Because that is
Mm-hmm.
not a good thing. There's either something
Right. That's not a good
they've dealt with.
example.
Yeah, or and their kids are gonna know. Their kids are gonna know. Like my
Right.
parent does not want to do this. Um, and then so after prayer and reflection, conversation with your spouse, the second tip I have is to always engage. So pray
Mm-hmm.
and then always engage. So even when you don't feel like you're ready, you don't know the language, you don't know the recent stats, you're not sure how you're going to talk about it, still walk into it because if the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity is there, then it's being provided for a reason. I
Yeah.
It's corny, but I sign all my emails like for such a time as this. And I mean that in a big picture way. I mean that in like a, 2025, 2026 way, the year, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
mean that in
Right.
just little moments too, because
Mm-hmm.
if your kids saw something, if they heard something, if they have a question floating around in their brain, then this is it. This is your opportunity. And this shows kids that even if you don't know what the answer is, like you are
Mm-hmm.
present. And so I guess I could even change that tip to like be present, but really it's engage with that
Right.
conversation. I have had parents time and time again tell me, oh, we saw something and we turned it off. And it's like, okay, maybe that's applicable, right? Like if you watch, what's it called again? Hunter Wives with your kid, like,
The hunting
yeah,
wives. Yeah.
that's it.
You need to turn that off.
Yeah, turn that
Yeah,
off,
yeah.
right? You
But we
don't want
need
to
to talk
expose your
about it
kids to,
afterward, though. We
yes,
don't just need
but
to turn it off and ignore it and keep going.
exactly. Don't just then ignore
Yeah.
it. Like I have parents who are like, well, there was a LGBTQ couple or there's somebody who's transitioning, so I just turned it off. And it's like, okay, and then what did you talk about? Well, nothing. And
Right.
that teaches your kid a lot. That teaches your kid a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So engage. If they're asking you, say, yes, that's a great question. Let's talk about that. Or let me talk to your dad real quick about that. And then I'll get back to you. I love that you
Yeah.
asked me that.
I think
Yeah,
I think some people too are like fearful of not having all the answers. Like they
right.
may not feel like an expert in this. And so they're like, well, I need to wait till I know everything. It's like, no, there's also power in saying, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. Like, let me take some time and, find an answer for you, consult somebody, and then I will come back to you. There's
Yes.
so much power in that. You don't have to have all the correct answer. You don't have to have like your anatomy 100% perfect memorized, got it all down to a T, of how each body part works. You can
Right.
take some time to look at stuff together. But okay, look, I brought us resources now. Like now I'm ready.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Just
have all the
exactly.
100% answers at the moment.
No, you never do. And I don't
Yeah.
either. And so, I mean, the key thing is really just stay engaged. Like, show your kid that, yeah, this is an important
Hmm.
topic. You want to talk about it with them. You love that they're asking as much as you're able, even just putting it in that positive framework of like, great question, or like, um, oh, that's
Hmm.
interesting. Where did you hear that from? Right? Rather than a,
Hmm.
what? Where did you hear that from? So even just be present, be engaged, and watch kind of how your response is. It's telling.
Hmm.
Um, but it's telling to your kids too. And try even if
Yeah.
you fake it till you make it, that's fine too. But just really show your kids that you're there, you're present, and you want to engage. And then the last thing I would say is something we've already mentioned, but I find it to be very important. I put it on all over my website, or I think I do at least. And that is that it is a conversation. I tell people all the time that the
Mm-hmm.
talk is dead and that the birds and the bees is like this unhelpful, weird metaphor. I don't get why that's still a
Hmm.
thing. Like, let's let that die.
Yeah.
Those are confusing. They're weird. they're not fully transparent or honest, which is the Lord is. Like, I want to be like him, and God
Mhm.
is honest. He sees people's hearts, he meets them where they are,
Mhm.
yes, but he doesn't inherently try to confuse his children, like his followers.
Right.
He gives them truth, even if they're not
Mhm.
fully understanding it or ready for it. And
Mhm.
I think that there's a way we can be like that in this topic, and really emulate
Yeah.
him and his presence. Like I said, be engaged, right? His prayer to the Lord first, his
Mhm.
engagement, and his honesty. So, um, I would just say, remember that it's a conversation. So even if you mess up or you feel like
Mhm.
you don't have the answer, or you already did a purity weekend, you're listening to this and you're like, I think I already did that, or my husband did that with my son. No, no, no. It's a conversation over
Right.
the course of their lifetime, because guess what? It's not just a talk, it's actually discipleship. You're really discipling
Right.
your children in this field, which maybe sounds
Right.
intimidating, but it's such a beautiful opportunity that so many of us missed out on, and it's what the
Mhm.
Lord does. It's what he commands for us as parents. So it's a conversation. It will last over the course of their lifetime, ideally. And you get to walk with
Mhm.
them and fellowship with them and disciple them as they go.
Right. Especially because if they just have like one weekend, like you don't know what happened after that weekend. You can't expect that one weekend, solved everything and they're never going to look at somebody the wrong way ever again or, do something. Like so much can happen after a weekend. And so you want to have that, like you said, continual discipleship going on and like room for your child to be able to say something to you. If you go one time and talk about it once and never again, like they're not going to feel comfortable to come to talk to you if something does happen. And especially we always want to create that space too because I know nobody wants to talk about it, but abuse happens. So like we have to have a space too where your child will feel comfortable to share with you if something happened to them that wasn't what they wanted. Like you need to be able to have that. And if you are having ongoing conversations, they're more than likely to come talk to you about that if something, God forbid,
Oh,
happens.
100%. I had a mom email me last week that one of the things I teach in my curriculum to 7 to 10 year olds is that if they do see naked pictures, I have them basically, it's called STOP. It's an acronym. Shut your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
tell an adult, open your mind to something new and play something else. And I teach it to the
Mm-hmm.
little kids too. But anyway, she said her son, a neighbor was like, I have to show you what you can do on YouTube, and literally typed in naked girls. And as he was typing that, this kid who was 9, I think, she said he
Mm-hmm.
knew what he was typing. He read it. He was like, no, I don't want to do that. Let's go do something else. And he told his mom about it and they talked about
That's
it. And he
amazing.
wasn't exposed to porn. And
That's
that is
amazing.
so good and
That's like
so
life
big.
changing. That's
Yes.
actually life changing
I,
for that boy that he was not
right.
exposed to it in that moment. Like
Right.
truly is life changing.
It is it could like bring me to tears because I think about
Mm-hmm.
maybe his future family, if he marries, his kids, like this is setting them up for success because this topic so matters. It is not just
Mm-hmm.
relegated to a weekend. It is not just focused
No.
on quote unquote purity, what you wear,
Right.
your body changing. It's so like big. And I know that that can
Mm-hmm.
be overwhelming for people. And that's part of the reason my curriculum has so many videos in it because I do talk about all these things, but that
Right.
actually means it's really rife. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Rife with opportunity. It's really
Yes.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
full of
Mm-hmm.
potential conversations you get to have with your child whom you love and you want to see healthy, a healthy future for. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about what topic can we talk about one time and be done with in anything? Like thing.
Yeah.
Even in
Right.
my own marriage, like and sex life, it's like in order to have a healthy sex life, you talk about it regularly, somewhat, you know?
Right. Oh,
Um,
absolutely. You have to.
yeah.
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 So
You have to.
nothing is a one-time conversation.
No, it's definitely not. So let's say I have a couple questions that I want to get to, but the last thing on this that I wanted to talk about is okay, let's say you're having these conversations with your kids, like you're talking about it, you're setting it up, and you still like catch them watching it. What should your response be? I know that a parent who maybe is doing all these things is going to be crushed, but like what would you say is a next step from that if that happens?
Right. I think again, there's those 3 tips that I gave. There's
Mhm.
prayer, there's engagement, and there's continuing the conversation. So that applies to
Mhm.
this as well. So if you have the possibility in the moment to even just a quick prayer, Lord, help me, like Holy Spirit, be with me, speak wisdom. The Holy Spirit cares about this topic because God cares about this topic. And so,
Mhm.
what do I need to say or how do I need to talk about this? Please give me the strength and the power, right? Because it is awkward
Mhm.
and it sucks. Like you don't want your kid watching
Right.
that, but then
Right.
engage, say like I want to talk about this, like you're not in this big trouble, or like I'm
Mhm.
so mad at you. Like, I just need you to come talk to me about this because it's really important.
Mhm.
There's practical steps to take, certainly around filters, around devices in bedrooms. I have some
Mhm.
filter recommendations on my website and like deals, you can get with, let's say, Covenant Eyes or whatever filter works. There's a lot
Mhm.
out there. Some people do have pretty strict rules about where devices can be used. But the bedroom and night
Mhm.
is like one obvious one that you can keep out of. But
Mhm.
you also want to talk about what happened. Like, was it an accident? Were
Mhm.
they just looking up something, and it came up? Were they
Mhm.
trying to seek it out? Was there masturbation paired with it? Like, you have to speak
Mhm.
into the situation that you saw, but really ask questions. What kind of leads you to
Yeah.
that? What happened? Like, um,
Mhm.
why is this something you're searching out? Can we talk more about kind of the harm and what this can really do
Yeah.
and how I want to protect you? Like, I am going to put practical boundaries in place for you because I don't want you watching this.
Mhm.
Does
Right.
that make sense? Um, and even if it doesn't make sense to them, which it probably will if you've already had conversations about it, um, it is for the
Mhm.
protection. It's like I say to the little kids I mentioned earlier, boundaries, right? They're for our health, they're for our
Right.
good, they're for our future, therefore our relationship with the Lord, to thrive in our relationship with others. And so it's okay to put very real boundaries in place, maybe even to have
Mhm.
consequences as you deem fit. But I think the conversation is unique to you and your child. You're the best parent for them, you know them, but it's really good to
Mhm.
explore why they went there.
I
Was
think
it a,
that's such a good word because you
yeah,
don't know it could open a door to more conversation about, well, I'm just feeling like lonely. I've been feeling really sad, and this is just like a way that helps me feel better, and then you can
yeah.
get to more of like what could be going on, under the surface that you may not be aware of or know what's going on. So that opens up more room for those conversations too. That's such a good point.
I mean, we just have no idea what they've seen recently, or maybe if there was a bullying situation, somebody made fun of them. Um, Anything could drive kids to that and people. And so it's really good to find out the
Hmm.
reasoning behind that. It's good for adults to
Yeah,
find out the reasoning behind why they search out porn.
totally. Oh, absolutely.
Because we all have
Right.
that, kind of God-sized hole in our hearts, and we're looking to fill it with other
Hmm.
things, but it won't do that. And so
Right.
engage with them, and then, like I said, keep the conversation going. Continue to bring it
Hmm.
up and to talk about it, not in a condemning way, but just in like I love you, I want to make sure you're safe, that kind of stuff.
That's good. That's a good word. So let's answer just a couple questions. I know we've answered some already throughout here that people sent in, but I just want to talk about a couple. Somebody said, I'm worried talking to my kids about this will scar them, but I want to talk about it. So how do I talk about this without scarring them? Because I can understand that. I feel like porn is very jarring, to talk about. So, like, it's
Right.
because it's a jarring thing.
Absolutely. I do not think we should do something that has such potential for beauty and goodness out of like fear. Like, we shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
primarily be motivated by fear. And in this question,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of I do hear fear. And while it's natural, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, I don't want to scar them. I don't want to give them too much information. That is why you pray. And that is why you are present in the moment, engaging with them. And that is why you keep the conversation going. So, usually,
Mm-hmm.
because we know our kids, we can read their body language and tell if they're feeling uncomfortable, if it's too much information for them, if they're ready, um, because maybe they're asking, which is a great way to know if they're ready. How
Mm-hmm.
much information you can give. One thing I do with my daughter. So, for example, I have this video somewhere on my Instagram account, but my daughter asked where babies come from. And I said, "What do you mean?" Because you always can start with that. What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just to see where their head's at and where they're coming from. And she said, "Well, how did I get out of your uterus?" Because she already knew what the uterus was. I think she was like 3 or 4.
Amazing. Amazing that she said, how did I get out of
Well,
your
you
uterus?
can you see it behind me? I have like a little stuffed
Yes,
uterus.
that's
She plays
amazing.
with it sometimes. Anyway,
That's so funny.
so how to get out of your uterus? And I said, well, babies are born out of the vagina, like they come out of the vagina. And she and it's amazing because there are adults who they can't say that even to their grown kid, like a
Right,
10-year, 11-year-old. They don't want to
right,
say it, like, oh, is this gonna scar them that baby's coming? No, like, babies come out of the vagina. It's just a fact.
right.
It's how they're
Especially
born.
if they know those words all growing up. I
Yes.
mean, Tate comes to the bathroom with me every single time I go to the bathroom. I know no peace in my life, but he always comes in and he's like, what? He'll be like, what's that? I'm
Right.
like, that's mommy's vagina. And
Yeah.
he's like, okay. And
That's
like he just moves on. Like he knows those words. He knows what his penis is. He's 2.5 years old, and he'll be like, "My penis." I'm like, "Yep, your penis. There it is."
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there's nothing
And
wrong
it's
with the
just like
words.
so casual. Like it's not weird. It's just like
I
That's
mean, it is
mommy's
a
body
great,
part. That's your body part.
yeah, it is a great learning environment. Even like my daughter, that's how she learned about periods because she was like, "What are those?" And I was like, "Well, these are pads and
Right.
tampons." And so that, but anyway,
Yeah.
and so just going step by step to see how much they want.
Hmm.
After she found out babies were born out of the vagina, she asked me if it was ouchies. I said it is, and she moved on, right? And so
Hmm.
engaging with them, but seeing how much information they need, and that way you don't have to be
Hmm.
as afraid of like, am I going to scar them? Am I giving? You don't want to go on this big spiel about like
Right.
if they're
And maybe
asking
they
what
weren't even
sex is.
asking that. I love the what do you mean? Because maybe they
Yes,
weren't even like asking actually how a human was created. They
right.
just genuinely wanted to know how they came out of your body. But you wouldn't
Exactly.
have known that had you have not have asked, what do you mean? I love that. That is a great tip. Yeah.
It's just and it also gives you pause. It gives you a ability to be in the moment.
Hmm.
If a kid says, what's sex, and you go on this whole thing about penetrative like sex, and then they're like, wait, am I a male or a female? On like maybe they're like circling something. And I have heard this story before where they're M or F on a form and they didn't know what the form, they're little and they're like, wait, what do I have to circle? Why does it say sex?
Hmm.
And what do you mean? Well, what do I circle? M or F, right? Like
Hmm.
very different. I had a mom tell me that her son asked, "What are boobies?" And she was about to go on this whole thing
Hmm.
about like slang and being respectful and da da da. And then she said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Booby traps." What? Like I don't get what those are. So
Oh,
very different conversation.
right.
Yeah. So
Right. Right.
ask
I
the
love that.
kid. That will help quelch some of the fear,
Yeah.
squelch some fear. Yeah,
Yeah.
around that conversation. But remember that you
Yeah.
are not the one who's going to like scar them, right? That really is the
Hmm.
world. That's where the world comes
Hmm.
in and really touches their lives. If you
Hmm.
are engaging with them in humility, in love, in genuine, like, I want to help you, this isn't going to be a scarring experience for them. But go step
Hmm.
by step because I'm sure we also can reflect upon, well, what was scarring for us and why? Like
Hmm.
what was the general idea?
It
And
was
it's
more
usually
scarring for me to not talk about it with
yeah,
my family.
same.
Honestly. Like
Same.
that's
Or to
what
like
scarred me more.
learn it from some book that had, it's just like, no,
Right.
I like what is happening? So
Yeah.
yeah, from a loving parent who's having these regular conversations with them, it's really not going to be like a scarring activity. It's much
Yeah.
less likely. Yeah.
That is a good word. Okay, the next question. What words can I use with my young kids that aren't graphic?
I think this depends on what the person's asking because I'm wondering
Hmm.
if even vagina and penis are graphic to them, and that's because they
Right.
have
When I
some
saw the
stigma.
person who, because I know the person who
Oh,
wrote this
okay.
in, I was kind of surprised because I was
Oh,
like, you use the normal like
oh,
body part
okay.
language.
They
So
do.
maybe they're just asking a little bit more of like, do you use the word sex? Do you use the word oral? Maybe that, but maybe you should not. I just was a little bit surprised because I was like, I think that you normally use these words, but
Okay.
we
Yeah.
still need to answer the question in general
Okay.
because other
Great.
people are thinking it too.
But like you mentioned, even different types of sex. I mean, my older
Mhm.
daughter is 7. I'm going to talk to her about oral and anal sex. If she's
Right.
asking me
Right.
something, that's a different story. But that is too graphic. That's too much information for a 7-year old. Like
Right.
they don't need to
Right.
know that. Again, and
Right.
and that's not all encompassing or prescriptive. There might be some kids who something has
Hmm.
happened, abuse, or they've seen something,
Hmm.
and then it's like, well, you are going to talk about that as a form of sex and as meant for this
Hmm.
context, or this is what we believe about that. Of course, you can always bring in your
Hmm.
values, your worldview, your faith, um, and that can be really helpful to frame it in a bigger picture. But I
Hmm.
wouldn't say I use words that are graphic with kids, but that's just because I'm using anatomically correct words and I'm comfortable with
Right.
using those, and so there's no feeling of like I'm just
Right.
being vulgar or something. I don't, like I said, I
Right.
don't use the word porn with super littles. Just because
Hmm.
primarily because I don't want them going out and talking to other kids like porn, da da da, and then some kid's
Right.
older brother Googles it or something. Um,
Right.
but yeah, so
That's a good word.
prayer,
Yeah.
discernment, Holy Spirit, step by step, and then maybe even in that, and this doesn't apply to the person who asked, I guess, but figuring out why you might think something's graphic, like if it's just that it's just a
Hmm.
real word and you're not comfortable with it, that's a little bit
Hmm.
different scenario.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I think the important thing to note here is that anatomical body parts are not graphic. That is just the name of your body part. And when we put a lot of pressure around it and we make it a big thing, that makes it a lot more shameful than it needs to be. And it turns into something that it truly did not have to be. Like my 2-year-old just saying, "What's that?" Okay, that's mommy's vagina. Okay.
Yep.
And what is that? My penis. Okay.
Right.
And that's like, that's as deep as it gets. It's
Right.
not going to be any bigger, of a deal than
Yeah.
what it needs to be.
I can imagine generations of old, like the fact that I told my daughter babies came out of the vagina and she was 3 or 4, being like, "Well, that's too
Right.
graphic, right? That's too
Right.
much." But it wasn't too much. It's just the reality of childbirth.
No.
It was fine. She was totally fine with it. It's way easier actually when they're little because they don't really care than if they're
Right.
like
Yeah. They don't really
12
care.
and it's the first time they're learning
Totally.
this and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't handle it."
Right.
You know.
Right. But if it's what they grow up knowing, then it's what they grow up knowing. I know we had one more question, but I think we kind of answered it throughout. So I just wanted to give some hope to the girl. She said, "I'm pregnant with a boy and I'm absolutely terrified. How do I start teaching from birth?" Well, we pretty much, I feel like, covered a lot of that, but I did just want to say I think checking out Kristen's courses is going to really help you with this. I think that can lead into just our closing. Can you tell us about maybe some of your courses or where people can find it? Because I think that's honestly, I feel like what this person
Sure.
needs is some help. And you've got this. To the mom who wrote that in, you've
Yeah, you
got
do.
this. You are so equipped. The fact that you're even asking these questions shows that you're way ahead of where so many of our parents were. So you
100%
got
agree
this.
with that.
There's so many resources out there that can help you, and I'm so grateful that we have them. So grateful that we have these resources to help you out.
I totally agree. I think not only the fact that they're asking, but the fact that they're the parent. Like, I do want to
Right.
give sex ed back to the parents a bit. I do think it's our
Hmm.
job and our realm, and we should
Yes.
be doing it. And so that's why I give this in a sense to people, or that's part of the reason that it's given to people to use in their homes. I mean, Christian schools
Hmm.
also use the curriculum, but it really, families are the biggest consumer of this material because they want to have the conversations at home. And this makes it look like the parent already knows all of this stuff. And so now the kid
Hmm.
just can turn to them after the kids watch the videos, because my videos are always and only really meant for the kids. But of course,
Hmm.
parents can watch with them or before them, after them,
Hmm.
whatever. And then the kid can ask them. And that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be this launch pad for conversation in the home.
Hmm.
And yeah, I have curriculum for 3 to 6 year olds, 7 to 10 year olds, 11 to 13, and 14 to 18. So really, all parents need to do when they visit the site is pick the age group that serves their kids. Sometimes parents will ask me like, "Well, should I start with the 3 to 6 if I'm just now starting and my kid's 11 or 10?" No, like start in the age group they're at. The other ones will be too juvenile for them. It just speaks to that age group. You don't need all the other stuff. It all starts afresh in a way every time anyway, but it's
Hmm.
for that age group. So it's all
Fantastic.
on my website. You can get free samples first, so you can see little clips of what it looks like. But really, it's a full digital library of so many of my lessons, with workbooks,
Hmm.
with parent tip videos, and lifetime access. They never pay for it again. They can keep it forever and log in whenever they're ready to have the conversations, or when they want to start
Hmm.
preparing, or when they're homeschooling as a part of their health curriculum, whenever it is. It's full access, all right on the website.
That's amazing. Yes, I'm so glad that we have this stuff out there because I'm using it. I'm definitely getting that stuff. Even though I talk about this stuff all the time, I'm like, I'm still not perfect. I still don't know. I still need the help. That's why I'm coming to you. I'm like, can we talk about this? I need the help. So it's so good that we have all these resources available to us, so that we can, help raise up new generations that are going to be
Yeah.
speaking against this and not, the other way around and not doing it in shame and in silence too. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Our God
yes.
is the creator of sex. We should have always been the ones who are owning it. And not in
Yeah.
like a legalistic way of do this and don't do that, but in a really beautiful
Hmm.
conversational, like discipleship way, that
Absolutely.
empowers and encourages the next generation. So I love it. I praise all praise to
Hmm.
God because he really is the creator. He's really the one who did it
Yeah.
all. And I'm just really thankful.
Absolutely. Me too. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I will link I'll link your website and your social media on the episode notes so people can click on that. I, guys, highly recommend you following Kristen, following Sex Ed Reclaimed, and just getting in, her info. Even if you're not a mom yet, it's still so helpful to have this information just for yourself too, and just so you can be aware because I'm sure you interact with some kids in your life. So it's just good to have this knowledge and this info. So make sure you guys are following her. Check out her website, check out her courses. Thank you so much for the work that you do and for being a guest today.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate it. It was so fun.
It was so fun. Okay, friends, we will talk soon.